Hi everybody, this is Jonathan Schrantz, and today we're going to continue our blueprint. This is the third and final part of the aggressive Nimzo for black when white plays queen to c2, the classical variation. This is a brand new layout for the blueprint, so please in the comments below, let me know what you guys think of the layout. Do you like where all the stuff is? Let me know if there's anything you think should be different. And as always, hit subscribe so you can be the first person to get your hands on the very next blueprint. That being said, the classical Nimzo, I've been recommending we hit him up with the move d5, directly targeting the c4 pawn. We do intend on capturing it. So in the past, we've looked at how white should deal with this, the main move being c takes d5, and in part 2 we looked at a3. Both of these moves directly address the issue that the c-pawn is attacked. And there's going to be two lines in this lecture that are very similar. Those are knight to f3 and bishop to g5. Those moves do lead to very typical positions where black actually is just going to take that pawn. If they don't defend it and they don't do anything about it, we are going to take on c4 and see if we can stay a pawn up for the rest of the game. However, there is this move e3, and before this lecture I was just kind of like, well, whatever. e3, not great. They defend their pawn. Okay, well, yeah, we don't want to take it until this bishop moves. I get it. However, I did look up some pretty sharp stuff. There's ways that we actually can avoid a lot of the mainline Rubinstein orders, because white's played this move queen c2, which is really weird. If we back it up here for just a second, if they played the move e3 here and we hit them up with d5, there are a lot of moves that are more popular than queen to c2. a3, knight f3, bishop d3, knight e2, c takes d5, queen a4 check, bishop d2, and only then queen c2. So yeah, weird. It would be a very odd choice to decide to do that. Now, that being said, we have to play something, and black should either castle or play c5. I've kind of had a look at them both. I'm just going to say you should castle and watch this sharp line that can occur. They might play a3 now. If they do, we'll take. They might play knight f3 first. If so, we're going to hit them up with the move c5. So our idea is we're to castle and play c5, and you can do them in either order. There are a little bit of differences if white plays a3 first. But let's just look at some good stuff here. I don't want to focus too much on e3 because it's very, very rare that anybody would even do this. The interesting part about this is obviously white can change the pawn structure in one of many ways. So there's some tension here. It's usually never right in the sense that like white's not going to get a huge advantage if he does change the pawn structure here immediately, but it's very playable and white can obviously give it a go. I'd recommend you do look up at some of these lines on your own. I just want to focus on the main line for right now, and that is if they play the move a3. So this is what most people will do if they do play this sideline. Now, after we take here, they will take back, usually with a pawn, and we will play knight to c6. Now, if they develop this bishop, because, I mean, what else are you going to do? It doesn't really matter where you go. We're now going to take on c4. Now that the bishop finally moved, we're going to take it and just check out this line. If they take back, our main plan here, obviously white's going to castle next. Okay, our big plan is to play the move e5. That's the most logical pawn break in our position. So in order to do that, we're going to put our queen on c7, and we're just going to play the move e5. White is going to castle, and we get to play our move. And we really might be thinking of pushing our pawn on the next move. So they're going to put their bishop on d3. That has prevented our pawn push, so we're going to play rook to e8. And this is the starting point for some very interesting stuff. White has two main ways here of dealing with the fact that we're about to fork you. That is, they can take either with a knight or a pawn. Either way, we're going to transpose to a line we're going to... check out. That is not one of the ways. That does allow e4. And the other way is actually the main line, e4. And we've now actually transposed to a sort of offbeat Rubinstein line, but it does lead to some sharp, amazing stuff. So check this out. I love this. You play e takes d4, c takes d4. This is a very provocative line. You play bishop to g4. And wait, why is this provocative? What's going on here? What am I missing? Check out this. e5. You know, why did we allow this? The bishop is just attacking the h-pawn. We move our knight away. They take our h-pawn. Have we goofed? Did we make a mistake? No, we did this on purpose. We take here, and they're going to take us. Obviously, now our h-pawn is attacked. Looks like Do we have to play g6? Looks horrible. I don't have a dark squared bishop. Do I have to play g6? No, you don't. No, you don't. Knight takes d4, attacking the queen. Amazing stuff. What's this, though? I still don't get it. You take here, check, right? What's the problem? You win a pawn, and after the king moves, I guess either place the king went, but I don't know where you'd go anywhere but h8. You'll be able to take here, check. So, yeah, white did obviously win a pawn, but now the queen is attacked. So, yeah, very risky to decide on doing anything. Black also now does have a lot of threats in this position. The main threat is rook to h8, which will pin this bishop to the h7 square, h2 square. We have our queen and our rook lined up there. So our big threat here is actually to play rook h8 and win their bishop. That being said, you don't have time to move the queen somewhere. You can't go here or here. We're going to play rook to h8. So what they need to do is actually pin our knight. Now, this is particularly dangerous because taking here is a huge threat. Look at this pin. So the way we deal with that is we first defend our knight and now renew the threat of rook to h8. Now, come on. Whose opponents can figure out what's going on here? This is insane. This bishop is going to have a hard time leaving. White is going to grab here. And we're going to play, of course, rook to h8. Now, the fact that we're winning this pawn means they're going to play here, trying to get the rook to the g file. And amazingly, the best move here is not to take, although it could be considered. The best move is actually king to f8. Of course, of course. And this is going to lead to a very sharp game where black has very realistic chances of getting an attack against the king. Not so easy for anyone to figure out. I think a line goes like this and this. But I don't know. If it were me, I would prefer to be black here. It looks very easy to play. I think it's more likely white is going to goof this up. If black does play well, white does play well, he actually can hold this together. But it is simply not going to be easy. One game went here, b6, king g1, king g7, bishop b4, and now takes here. And the game here ended in a draw. So, yeah, possible, sharp stuff, very amazing. I would love to uncork some of this on a real opponent and see what they are capable of actually coming up with in a game. So, yeah, if they play e4, trade, go in for the craziness. If instead they take here with a pawn or a knight, we're going to take back. They're going to take us, and we're going to take here. This also can lead to some interesting play where black does need to come up with something. If they play the most common move, which is f3, we have ideas of putting this bishop on this diagonal, just bringing our rook in. Shouldn't be too much of a bother. So after bishop to d2, they'll play a move like a4, and after a series like this, really not too much to talk about here. Bishop c4. Let's start loading up on here. And there's one little tactic that you can do. In this particular position, the rook is undefended, so there's a pin here. Knight to d5, bishop to d2. The idea was we put our knight on f4, and yeah, nothing too much to say about this one. You can trade. You play this nice little move, c4. The idea is they take, we take back. You can also trade some stuff. Not too much going on. And, oh, well, I was going to show you one more thing about it, but let's just move on with the show. We looked at the fireworks. Now, after the move d5, the main focus of today's lecture is what happens if they play knight f3 or if they play bishop to g5. And they're both actually very similar. They might transpose in a lot of ways. The Magnus Carlsen game I want to show you, the interesting thing about this position is actually after d5, the highest rated game is actually Mamedyarov playing knight f3, which is insane. This is super rare, but the fact that a super high level opponent played it means we have to think about this, and we'll see how Magnus handles knight to f3. I do want to first take a very brief look at bishop to g5, even though it can be very, very similar. I just want to talk about this position in general. As I said, we are going to take your c4 pawn. If you don't defend it, we will take it, and most likely they're going to play knight f3 and transpose. But the reason I want to look at it from this move order is there was two different plans for white. Mamedyarov in his game, he plays g3, bishop g2, and tries to get a lot of pressure on the queen side, understanding what black is going to do to set up. But before we get that, I want to look at what kind of happens if white just plays the way I think any classical opponent, most club players are going to do. They're going to play e4, they're going to play in the middle, and they're going to try to crush you that way. They're going to try to take advantage of this pin. They see e5 come in, they get very excited. And here's the blueprint for black. What black wants to do, here's how we're going to defend our queen side. That's our pawn. We do intend on keeping it. We're going to play moves like b5, c6, a6. That's the pawn structure we're going to get on the queen side in basically every single scenario. That being said, we're going to fortify our queen side with bishop to b7. Knight is going to come to d7. Queen usually can go to b6, but there might be alternatives for the queen. If the bishop ever gets attacked, just a little poke here, it is often nice to be able to retreat all the way back to e7. We can trade for the knight, as we'll actually see in a game. But yeah, this guy's also a good defender, so it's a big decision whether you should take the knight or bring the guy back. As for castling, you do want to be very, very careful. You usually do want to insert the move h6 and start asking this bishop questions. Sometimes there's tactics. If he moves away, sometimes he'll have to take us. That would be great. Giving up the bishop for the knight, something like that would be awesome. But you do have to be a little bit worried. White is playing for a big attack here, so you can imagine if this pawn runs down the board, you got this queen here, knights are jumping in, it can get a little dangerous, so be careful when you decide to castle. You don't want to just castle into an attack if you're safe in the center. That being said, what we want to do is we want to play the move b5, and White is going to decide. They should probably start with the move a4, immediately asking questions on the queen side. If they play the move e4, you now have a very nice move. This simply allows h6. And the idea is you pretty much have to take this knight, which is no big deal. If you take, we'll take back with our queen, and by the time you start getting pressure here, we should be able to keep everything intact over here. The problem is, if you go back, do you guys see what black should play? I always like to test you guys just a little bit. You actually have a fantastic move here. g5, and after they go back, you can now play bishop to b7. All of this is very logical and not going to be super easy to defend the guy. If you do push it, for example, I mean, what to do here? Knight e4 is going to be a very good move, putting pressure here, putting pressure on this guy. In the future, you would love to bring your queen over here, and yeah, I don't know. You have this big threat now of playing h5, and c5 might be a strong move. Lots of ideas here. So this actually turns out to be very, very good for black, winning even. Which is why white really needs to start with the move a4. And if they start with e4, just remember, play h6 right away. Now, you will defend it. And then obviously, they can continue with g3, but this is going to be our Magnus game that we're going to look at in just a moment. If they do something else, it's very similar. You play the move h6. And yeah, again, you have to pretty much take here. If you go back, it's very similar. g5 is, again, a very strong move. It's a little bit different with pressure here, but if they go back and you play g5 and they go here, the fact that we put our pawn here does make a little bit of difference. We can now go after the bishop. We can just simply develop our stuff, or we can even, without g5, decide to continue developing. Now, I do want to point out this kind of move because I think it would be scary. This is sort of a normal, natural reaction. The idea is if they ever play here, we do want to play g5. Now, never worry about this. This is not an issue. They do have to move the bishop. If they go here, this thing is so weak, we're going to follow up by taking this, usually with a queen, and the g file is open, and yeah, no, this normally does not work out. You don't have to worry about that at all. So they will need to move away, and now we can hop into one of these squares. Probably going to the middle is better. You could go to the side, but knight to d5 looks like just an excellent move, and you are up a pawn. You shouldn't have too much problems here. Just make sure you get your stuff out and eventually play for the move c5. Yeah, with all that in mind, let us, at this very moment, go all the way back. Give me just 1 second here. Hopefully I don't mess this up on try number 1. I can do it. You can do it, Jonathan. You did it. You did it. You're a genius. All right, knight f3, and we are now looking at the game Shakhriyar Mamedyarov versus Magnus Carlsen. The link to the game will be in the description below, so if you do want to replay through it, go check it out. Now, knight f3, we are jumping over to the board here. And I do really like this game. Magnus made it look so simple, so smooth, so easy. You know, you take the pawn, it's yours. And then just use world champion level technique, and you win. So, bishop g5 again, b5, we know this idea now. After a4, it's usually right for white to put as much pressure on the queen side immediately as possible. Otherwise, we're going to play h6. We play c6, and now the main idea for white, I feel like this has to be white's best try, is you play g3, you play bishop g2, and you're going to have this bishop here looking down this nice diagonal, so white will sometimes have ideas of taking on a5, and if we take back, things can get exposed here. Like you imagine the knight jumps, there could be some problems. We want to pay attention to that diagonal. So as black, let's jump on that diagonal as soon as we can. And after bishop to g2, let's go ahead and develop our stuff. Okay, white decided to castle. And again, as black, you don't want to be in a hurry to castle. You really can walk into a lot of attacks. And white has a very nice setup. He might continue trying to do stuff on the queen side. Maybe b3. Maybe some sort of weird takes, maybe just jumping a knight in, maybe playing e4. And we've already reached a position that has basically never occurred. This is the only Super GM game, and I only see 3 games in the database, so not popular at all. This is basically the only example of what to do. So thank goodness it was Magnus playing, because that really fits the blueprint well. In the game, queen b6 was played. Okay, a very normal square, getting out of the pin. The queen does a very good job on b6, defending the bishop and defending the b-pawn another time. So overall, an excellent square. Also, take note that this pawn was kind of attacked. We would have had to have given up our bishop in the meantime. So defending the pawn, either with the queen or the a-pawn, did make a lot of sense. Now e4 played. White does have aggressive ideas. Sometimes e5, sometimes d5. It's a little bit dangerous. We got to be on the lookout for all sorts of pawn action in the center. And here he just played a6, and he's ready to go. Now, yeah, probably this is not going to be the ideal setup. Again, we're just going to go to the middle, and yeah, you can start hopping around, but as long as we have this guy and this guy is safe, he does an excellent job keeping that knight out of this square. So yeah, probably we can castle, we can play h6. I like the idea of just playing h6 and getting this guy out. And now this is going to be a very bad idea. This is one idea you want to know. This guy is an excellent defender. Keep track on that d6 square. You do not want a knight to kill you there. But if you go back, black has an excellent position and should go on to have a fantastic game from here. So probably white's better idea is to play for d5. And he began that plan with rook to d1. Makes a lot of sense, bringing another piece into the game. And again, don't be in a rush to castle. Magnus played this move, h6, asks a question of the bishop. What are you going to do? Where are you going to go? And, okay, not a lot of places. So he went back, and if you get this tingling that you should just attack a bishop, forget about it. Bishop's just going to move again. Knight really doesn't belong there. And what it's really about in this position is playing a pawn break. So you can castle now. You can probably play c5 already. Magnus did decide to castle, which is a bit interesting, but he does this thing called calculating. So that did seem to aid him very well. d5 played, and now a very interesting decision. Yeah, it looks like maybe black wants to just start taking stuff. Well, I like what Magnus did. Check this out. He just plays the move c5. Now the queen is laterally defending it. He's not trying to bust it open all too early. He's just trying to sensibly take control of the position. And white played an amazing move that only a top grandmaster really can play. a5, which shows a high level of calculation. He really went pretty deep here. It looks like that is simply hanging a pawn, but Magnus played queen to d8. And it has to do with this pawn structure, so it's very interesting what could happen. Let's just take a quick peek. I think a lot of people would be tempted. We just see pawn, we take pawn. But now he's going to go here. And the idea was the bishop now is distracted. The queen really wanted to take on e6 to keep our pawn structure intact. And now, you know, the bishop's over here. So we don't want to get that greedy. We're already up our pawn. We don't need to get this greedy. And the point is now, if we take here, there could be some amazing, amazing stuff. It's based on the fact that after e5, if you move this guy, which It's hard not to. White will hit you with the move. Bishop takes h6. Of course. The idea being, if you take, the queen is coming in, and it's not going to be a perpetual. It's going to be a checkmate. Just trust me. This is not going to end well for you at all. Just not going to work. But yeah, and the line goes further, and I think the computer says some crazy stuff like you can survive by taking this knight and, you know, giving up this bishop for, you like take here and then you take this knight and you go crazy and then somehow you survive as black. But yeah, not what you should be aiming for. Your position is already good. You're already a pawn up. Don't bother with that. But do keep in mind that white has sacrifices you do really want to keep your eye out for. And if your pawn structure does get tattered a little bit, you do need to be able to meet a lot of the resources. Usually you bring the bishop back kind of towards your king to guard it. Bringing the queen back works as well. You need to have some dark square defenders. But now, knight h4 played. White simply intends on expanding here with the move f4. Makes a ton of sense. It's 4-on-3, and that's where the king is. And white is going to play for this all-out attack. But just watch the strategic masterpiece that Carlsen really puts on. He played an excellent game from this position. He did make what I think could be considered a controversial decision here. He decides, before this guy gets trapped out here, he actually does take the knight. Not easy. Not easy for me at all. I love this guy. He's my favorite. He's my best defender. I love that guy. But, yeah, Magnus gives him up. And watch how he defends this position. If black's careful, he is a pawn up. So, if he does play this right, things will work out. And watch how masterfully he maneuvers. So, queen, get off the d-file. Rooks need to go on the d-file. And how is he going to get all of his rooks there? And how is he going to defend all these squares? Check it out. f4, rook d8, h3. Okay, so white's going to bring some more stuff. Maybe you're throwing g4 at me. Maybe you're putting your king on h2. No big deal. All right, here's part of it. Rook to f7, making way for the rook to come over. The knight can come to f8, simply defending. It looks so easy. After the rook comes in, he plays e5, just not letting white get out of control with the space. And now, knight to f8. Easy as it comes. Just give the pawn back, take, and bring the rook in. And even though he's given a pawn back, I assume he's actually calculated this very well and may have already seen pretty deep into it and known that he has a tactic. So, yeah, white decides to give it up. You would like to play a move like here, probably, but after queen to d8, yeah, this doesn't look right. We actually can attack the bishop again, so that's not going to cut it. And if you just move your bishop back somewhere, I don't know, let's just move our bishop back. The rook is just coming in. This is pleasant. So to save the time, he does give up a bishop for a knight. Black takes it back. And after rook to d1, can you start to play like Carlsen here? Very possibly. You can find the first move. Queen to c5, check. King moves. And now, one more move and the game ended, if you can believe it. It's gone from white trying to be active and checkmating black to black all of a sudden springing forth with activity here. And based on the fact that some pieces are overloaded, can you see the tactic that Carlsen played right here and already won the game? Do pause your video. This is a really nice one. And if you haven't found it already, the answer is bishop takes e4. Very nice move. Very nice move. White figured it out and resigned here. The idea is, yeah, if bishop takes, we will take this guy first. And now after your queen takes, we will munch on this guy. And black is now winning. So, yeah, not much else you could do. If you take here, for example, we'll take this one. Yeah, simply winning on the spot. Bishop e4. So I hope that does give you guys a very nice blueprint. This rounds it out. If they do play the Nimzo, you know what to do. I just love seeing it. I just love seeing it. They play the classical. You play d5, and now you have a sharp repertoire on your side. Please hit that like, share, subscribe. Let everybody know about the video. Make sure you know that you're subscribed so you get the blueprint when they first come out. I've had a blast doing this, so please let me know if there's any other openings you guys do want to see covered. and I'll see you guys in the future for another blueprint.